Hey friends. So, over the years, I've implemented some practices in my software development workflow that have helped me get almost instant approval for most of my pull requests. Now, getting instant feedback in my pull request helps me get things done a lot faster because I can avoid context switching. When I put up a pull request, I can expect an approval or some comments to come in pretty soon after that, and I don't have to go and do other tasks while that's happening. Implementing these practices helps me get more interesting feedback in my pull requests, and I think it also makes me more likable because I'm making the lives of my teammates more easier. So in this video, I want to talk about these practices that I've implemented and hopefully help you get things done much faster during your workday, and maybe you can help me get some more ideas to implement in my workflow as well. So the first thing I do before I even get started coding is to talk with someone about the things that I'm going to be implementing and how I'm going to be implementing them. And this can be just a casual conversation with another software developer on the team, or maybe even something more formal that I've set up together for the whole team to talk through. This helps me front load the feedback much earlier in the process instead of getting it later during the pull request. You certainly do not have to do this for changes that are more straightforward or generally smaller, but it makes more sense to do this for bigger changes that might have some new design patterns that you might be implementing in the code base or some major refactoring that you might be doing. It makes sense to also talk about it when you are implementing new features. When you discuss this with other developers in your team, I find that it helps me just solidify that idea and also figure out if there might be some roadblocks in that idea or some other obstacles that I did not think of earlier. And also, just getting feedback from others is helpful. They might come up with some better ideas of doing things that you did not think of. The next thing I do is I try to keep my pull requests small. Large pull requests are generally overwhelming to look at. They force reviewers to hold a lot of context in their head about all the code that they have to go through. And large pull requests make it difficult for reviewers to keep track of what part of the code they should be focusing on at any given point of time. Generally, you can keep your pull requests smaller by breaking them down into smaller pieces. If you find that you're coding and putting up these pull requests faster than they might be getting reviewed, you could potentially chain those pull requests together. So what that looks like is you code up your changes, create a pull request on that new branch that you've been coding away on, and then you create a new branch from that branch you just created, make your changes, throw that up as a pull request, but now that pull request is pointing to the first branch that you created, and then, so on and so forth, basically creating like a linked list of pull requests, if you will. So the next step is to take advantage of what computers are really good at, the boring, trivial, and tedious stuff like linting, formatting, static analysis, and automated tests. So make sure you run all those things in your tool chain before you put up your pull request. You can either do that locally or in your CI/CD pipeline if they're configured to run with every push. If you run it locally, you're going to get more faster feedback. But if you don't remember to, you can rely on the pipelines. I generally wait to see those results before I create a pull request. A lot of these tools can also be integrated into your code editor itself. A lot of the formatters like Prettier or Black are already integrated into your IDE. So are tools for static analysis like SonarLint. Those also work with your favorite editor. Talking about letting computers do what they do best, I think it's always a good idea to leave the issue identifier or the ticket identifier in your commit message, or at least in the description or title of your pull request. Issue tracking systems like Jira or Linear or whatever you might be using integrate with your Git provider and put in a description or link to that issue itself. This makes it easier for your reviewers to go look at the issue and see what it's about. It's also a good idea to put in a lot of that context within the description itself. But if they need additional context, they can go to that link and they don't have to go and search for it in your issue tracker. I also find that it's a lot easier for reviewers to look at your pull request and understand your changes if you provide them with more context around what changes have been made. So this might look like screenshots or videos demoing everything, or it might even just look like the output of your REST endpoint. So providing this additional context not only helps the reviewers in understanding your changes, but it can also help them point out some minor things that you might have missed. This is especially useful in front end type of changes or UI changes where you might have missed something and others can catch them, compare them against the prototypes that your designers might have provided you. It's basically getting another pair of eyes on your work. You're also reducing the amount of work others have to do. I know a lot of people like to just test out the code that they're reviewing themselves by checking out the branch and running it. But if you just provide the output of your code as screenshots or videos or whatever demo that you can provide, they don't have to go through that step of checking out your branch and running your code. It just reduces the cycle time and helps you get more faster feedback. Now, not all the changes in your pull request might be of equal importance. There are definitely going to be some parts of your code or some parts of your changes that are more important than the others. And I think it's really useful to call those changes out in your pull request in the form of comments, or in your description, you can put them as links to those files or those diffs in particular. So when you point out something that's important, also point out why you think that's more important than the others. And if you're feeling a lot more generous, you can also just call out some of the trivial or non-important parts of the code and just mention why it's not important so people can skip over them and move on to the more interesting or important bits. For the more complicated parts of the changes, I like to leave inline comments in the PR about the expected behavior of the code. This helps reviewers verify if the code is working the way it should be, if it reads like the way it should be, and things like that. It just speeds up the process a bit. I'm not a big fan of leaving comments in the code about what the code is doing, but I think it's useful to leave those comments in the PR because it's useful for the duration of the PR itself. Now that you're almost ready to put up your pull request and invite other reviewers, you should take a look at the pull request yourself. It always helps to look at the code in a different interface. Your pull request interface is going to look a lot different than your IDE. And it's like looking at your code from another angle. Help me spot things that I might have missed earlier. Now, as you do all these things and work together closely with a team, you start to anticipate the kind of things people look for within the team and the issues that might regularly pop up. So before you invite others and as you go through your pull request, you can also try to anticipate the feedback and requests for changes you might be getting and work on them before those asks actually come in. And lastly, more from a process point of view, and this might be an interesting thing to talk to your team about. I've found that when things get a little heated or when you have really long discussions within the pull request itself, it takes forever to get through that pull request. If you see a discussion thread within the pull request going past 4 or 5 comments, in my experience, it makes a lot of sense to take that discussion offline and get together on a call or a meeting room and talk it through together and figure out what's the best approach and what's the next step over there. Asynchronous discussions in a common thread on your pull request take a lot of time and are very disruptive to both your workflow, the person who's making those comments, and the other people on your team who might be reviewing that pull request because they get all those notifications. So it's in the best interest for everybody to have a quick synchronous discussion about it. So that's how I get instant approvals for my pull request. It's basically making sure that my reviewers have all the information that they need and I have taken care of most of the things that I can find by double checking the code that I'm putting up. I would love to hear if there are things that you've tried and found really helpful as well in the comments below. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching.